Good morning, Rosemary.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to meet you this morning at 11 at our new second space, Domgasse 6, in the middle of the wonderful exhibition of Sheila Hicks. While the lockdown was, I was passing by the street in the middle of old Vienna, and I saw that this space is empty. And then suddenly I had the feeling, okay, I'm gonna rent this space. And in the same moment, I had also the impulse that would like to ask Sheila Hicks to make the inaugural exhibition. I was sure she was doing a landmark here, and so it is, because she has the feeling for space, for architecture, for color, for material, and she's knowledgeable in all of these things. And then she agreed, and that's what we have here. And in a second, a little later, she will join us from her studio. And here we have JULIA GARIMORTH. She's the curator also of this exhibition and had written many texts. She's the chief curator for Musée d'Art Moderne de Paris. And we had invited her 3 years ago already for an exhibition during our gallery festival. And she was doing these two wonderful artists, Judith Reichel and Sheila Hicks. And this was also the beginning of working together with Sheila. And it's so my pleasure that JULIA GARIMORTH is now starting to go and walk around in this space. This space has some Baroque moments because the house had been listed already in 1380, but of course many things happened with the house. But it has it's fresh and very nicely restored, and it makes a big pleasure for us to have this second space. And I'm thankful to Sheila very much, but I'm also very much thankful to Julia that you come here and that you are here with us and that you're going to speak with Sheila. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosemary, for the invitation, for this conversation with Sheila in this wonderful new space, new gallery space, inaugurated by Sheila Hicks. And this exhibition, which is entitled Cosmic Vibrations, is very, in a way, very complete because it gives us the whole panoply of Sheila's work in a temporary frame, since here are very early works from 71, the Prayers Rack. This one is from 1971, and the other one beside is from 72, entitled Entrance to the Forest. So from 71 and 72, there is this kind of link to two most recent pieces, which are here. The one in the window, which is called Neighborly Affection, which actually has been created this year. And besides, on the wall is F. Barbara W., also from this year, which means that this exhibition covers the period of 50 years. And inside these 50 years, there are other very high level examples, like for example, this piece on the wall, which is called Sunny Side on the Moon. Another panel, Ida and Will, here in the niche, and upside on the wall still Blue Vertical and Blue Horizontal from 2019. And in the very middle of the gallery, if you turn the head up, you will see this wonderful installation Deep on a Hidden Forest Walk from 2015 to 2018. So it took Sheila, it was an evolution piece. It took 3 years, and this is, we will come back to this later on, but very often Sheila's work are evolutive in the time, and this is one example. Yeah, then I would like also to welcome Sheila, who is with us on the screen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sheila. You are in Paris in your apartment. And I am in your space, in the gallery space. And so just in the beginning to present 2 words about your story in a way. You came to Paris in '64, and before that you studied at Yale University, and you started with painting. And then you quite quickly you discovered textile, the thread, which became the main material, even if you experiment all kind of materials, but the thread was all your life through a kind of guideline or a red thread, un fil rouge, as we say in French. Can you speak about your first experience with thread and how it guided you until today?
Well, I'm going to sound, instead of sounding like an artist, I'll probably sound like an anthropologist today, or a sociologist, maybe. Just to remind myself, I try to trace this thread, connection with thread. And the obvious is I connect to my 2 grandmothers. Because as a child, inevitably, when I would have to spend, or when I enjoyed spending summer vacations with my 2 grandmothers in different parts of the world, one in Nebraska and the other one in Illinois, they would keep me busy by giving me things to play with, which were pencils, paper, crayons, clay, and thread, to darn, embroider, fix, transform, change my own clothes, or their pieces of fragments of cloth that I could invent costumes for myself and for my brother, 1 year younger. Interesting, he became a psychoanalyst. He wanted to be an artist, I think, because he used to draw in a hidden way under his bed. We discovered that he was an artist when he was drawing under his bed on the wall, but he knew he had, since he was a boy, he knew that we had high ambitions for him and the family, and he became a doctor and then a psychoanalyst. I didn't hide my drawings under the bed or my thread or playing. Everything was out in the open, hodgepodge. And it was a line of thinking that I never left. I thought I could go, like my brother, into a higher profession or more exalted, because everything is hierarchical in our society and in our way of thinking and in our classifications. So I always aspired to and understood that people expected me, if I was going to or wanted to be an artist, that I should be a painter. I went to Yale and studied with Albers. He encouraged me, and I painted, and I got 1 degree, 2 degrees in painting, and moved to the front of a class which was mostly boys. In fact, practically all boys. Then did I have the courage to go back and work with materials that were familiar and sensual to me without being laughed at by the hierarchy. And I walked into an art history course with George Kubler, Latin American art history. And I saw mummies. I saw mummies wrapped with materials, and then X-rays that archaeologists had done of these mummies. And I've never been able to move out of that shock of civilization and thinking that our lives begin, develop, and work and end enveloped in and surrounded by cloth. I thought I can wrap painting right into this cloth story. And I jumped bravely and foolishly into working off the canvas, which was a woven canvas, into the world of thread, textile, fiber. I'm sorry it's so long, this little history, but it's in a nutshell where I am and where I've been for the last 70 years.
Mm-hmm. And this beginning with painting, there are still some references until now because of several works which are dimensioned in a way as a painting. Since, for example, if we can just have a look on the blue vertical and blue horizontal in the back of the gallery. Can we just have the view? Yes, so there are two squares. One is wrapped on horizontally, the other one vertically, and the two played together as a diptychon. And since you mentioned Albers, who was your teacher, we can, so Albers, he always experienced and studied the interaction of colors and made clear that color is in a way very subjective, and we cannot have a very objective perception of color because it's always depending on the surroundings and the context. And in a way, blue vertical and blue horizontal is also depending on the context because it's depending on light, how the light falls on the work. And since you re-emplaced in a way the paint by thread, so it is not only a visual issue, but it also, of course, a tactile issue. And the surface of the thread reflects or absorbs differently the light, of course, depending on the impact. And this is something very poetical for me because light changes throughout the day, and so the work is evolutive in a way.
Well,
yeah.
Well, you also imagine that not only can you see color interacting and drawing you in, but the closer you get to it, your eyes say, maybe I can even touch it. And so therefore, when no one's looking, you can approach the work and actually touch it with your fingertips. I don't know, in museums, you might be reprimanded, but imagine the sensual quality of working with color, not only visually, but tactically and physically. Saturated color, and also how it plays when it permeates different kinds of material: silk, cotton, linen, wool, paper. Keep going. All of the new synthetic and completely new industrially developed fibers. Do you see Chanette on the side of that pink panel? It's a kind of making thread jump and move around in a kind of crocheted circular Chanette chain. Color sneaks into the holes and bounces and moves out through the other holes on the right-hand side, you see? So, and then some of the threads are just plain simple lines. So when you take a pencil and start to scribble on a paper, and the scribbling gives you an sense of perspective or dimension. Here with the thread, I'm having like a sculptural approach to drawing. We've talked about painting. Let's think about sculpture too, and in the sense of bas-relief, starting with bas-relief like this, and then over next to you, the panel on the wall now, the bas-relief where after a few tequilas or whiskey sours or something, the thread starts jumping in space and moving around, and you see it's not lined up neatly and in a disciplined way, but it's spreading, moving and embracing and jumping and entering and exiting in all different directions. Still in a bas relief. Now jump off the wall into space and invade the territory or the domain of sculpture and let the thread have the time of its life and jump and move and enter environment and create something that is speaking with environment and light. Now, natural light you mentioned, how about electric light? For the first time in trying all these different experiences, we came across the idea of using the neon light tube that's in this gallery that's just been installed and made it part of the sculpture environment. The tube is not hot. You can even touch a neon tube. You can pick it up in your hand, even lit. So now it can make friends with fiber, bits of leather, bits of string, and let it actually permeate, penetrate, and go through the fiber and make the space into a really odd experience.
Mm-hmm. Since we saw just before this installation Deep on a Hidden Forest Walk, and we saw also on the details the different materials you used, like leather, like cotton, of course, like synthetic fiber. And this brings me to this, to the idea that you generally in your work, you bring together as very, very often and so often you can, different materials and to make them communicate with one with another. And this is this idea also of conversation and dialogue you install between the materials, not only between the materials itself, but also, of course, between the work and the viewer. So your whole creation and your whole artistic ideas turn always back to this to the thread as a means of communication, and in this development of ideas, very often I think that thread is a kind of synonym of, or on the other side, the prefix inter is a kind of symbolically represents thread, because inter, the Latin prefix, it stands for international, intercultural, intergenerational, interdependency. So this prefix represents in a way how thread connects people, communicates with other cultures, other generations, and I believe that your work, in your work, you essentially make the thread using this primary function: communication, interrelation, connection. Can you say something on this? There's another prefix, just I'm thinking about, this is also from another one, very important, this is multi. So it could also stand for thread, since thread in your work as you use it, because it's multicultural, it is multiple, multilingual, multicultural, and so on. So this is very important for you and for your work as it has ever been, and as I experienced it through your work.
You know, I had the good luck when I moved to Paris in the mid-60s. I had the good luck to meet by chance a woman who asked me at a dinner, and she asked me what I did. I tried to explain. She listened carefully. She was a very good listener. So it encouraged me to speak like you're doing today. Thank you. And she said, could I bring my husband by to see what you're doing? And I thought that was a generous and nice thing to do, because as a new arrival in Paris, I didn't know many people. So if someone wanted to knock on my door and visit and see my studio, it was interesting to me. I opened the door and I led them through when they came the following Wednesday, I think it was. And then little by little, other people around began to help me understand that it was Monsieur et Madame Lévi-Strauss visiting my studio. Imagine the chance of having someone like that look at what I was doing and help to articulate to others a sort of path. I was path breaking into some area that had historical, anthropological, cultural, as you were mentioning, cultural significance, because it was a way of helping the French in French, because the French know how to use language like few others, at least I think, beautifully, poetically, and expansively, helping them to lead a path, a tunnel into look and see that this material that is so banal and so common and so familiar to us is actually like a pass key to all cultures. It allows all cultures to communicate. When I've been exposed to other cultures, other countries, Africa, India, Japan, China, I can go on and on because I have moved around the world a lot. On call, I've never gone as a tourist, but the telephone rings and someone invites me to come and see and do something. That intrigues me. Do is part of my, I guess it's part of my childhood training. Get up and do something. Don't just sit there. And don't complain. Go and do. Go and make. Go and look. Go and learn. So I've had the benefit of that kind of orientation that's caused me to become familiar with very different kinds of cultures and activities that are manual. And I've gained a terrific respect as I've moved around in the world of people who sit and actually silently or while singing, making things. The hand, the eye, the brain, the pleasure. Now, this is the material that is a passe-partout, goes everywhere and touches every life from infancy, from birth to death. How intriguing can that be?
Yeah, actually, right, when newborn, discover the world not by seeing it or perceiving it with eyes, but by the tactile sense. And I have the feeling that your works bring us back to this very ancient and unconscious, in a way, very first sensation. And so once you said to me, close your eyes and still find the pleasure. So close your eyes, approach the works and just discover the work by this tactile sense. And unfortunately, paradoxically, this important sense is in our society is kind of not appreciated as it should be. And for me, your works, especially, for example, if you see these prayers rugs here hanging, and the surface and the richness of the textiles and the fibers, and so it brings us back to this very first and important sensation. And of course, once you said also, yeah.
The one you're looking
Pardon?
there, the white one you're looking at, the texture, I think
Yeah.
that will travel to an exhibition in a country that is mostly desert. It's been invited into a show in the Middle East. And so that was made in the south of France, but it's going to go on an adventure into the desert, into an exhibition.
Mm-hmm. And this invitation into a desert, maybe it is also evoked by the form of the rugs, because it seems to be like a door, an imaginary door to go somewhere else, to enter in another imaginary world and to open up for, as we said, to switch into other cultures and other countries. It has been inspired by a trip to Morocco. Is that right?
When I lived in Mexico, I was aware of the colonial architecture and the arches and the forms of architecture. And then when I was invited by the Ministry of Community Development, it was called, in Morocco, to come and work in the villages and in the rug making workshops and walking through the Kasbah and the different architectural structures in Morocco, I began working with the geometrical form of the arch. And it evolved into prayer rugs, where we made a show in the National Museum in Rabat. And the feeling of the visitors was they didn't much notice or mind who was making this. They connected with it as theirs. That was for me wonderful, to feel I had made something that spoke to them and their culture and their sensibility. Now these prayer rugs seem to see, you see the arch even in the gallery here to the left? It's part of our architectural language, the geometry. You see, I'm working with triangles, arches, and then free dancing forms, but with texture. I'm sorry. Cultural geometry is interesting too, seeing crossing in different countries and different kinds of environments, how they use geometry, how they use texture, and how they use materials. And then, of course, the ice cream on top of the cake, which is color.
Mm-hmm. Concerning the inspiration, permanent inspiration, and your openness to other cultures, I just would like to go back to one installation we showed 3 years ago in the exhibition Pantarei we did together, also in the gallery next Stefan. And maybe we can have a look on one of the installations we exposed then, which is called Droit de Parole, and which goes back to or refers to North American Indian traditions. And what is very interesting in this piece is that, of course, in this tradition, in a tribal council, the members pass talking stick from one person to another one, and this the member who has the talking stick in his hand has the right to speak, le droit de parole. And the importance is that it not only gives the right to speak, but the person who has the stick in his hand has to show himself also worthy of having the stick in his hand. So it is a kind of respect. And this piece is very significant for me for different things. First of all, it shows that the thread becomes kind of metaphor for individual self-expression and symbolizes also the respect for others, their origins, their language, their cultures, and creates again, as we said in the beginning, the dialogue. Here in the image we see now on the screen, there's I remember you put one of the sticks in the corner, and that was, as you said, the talking stick, which should be used.
I wanted some, and you see, children who are uninhibited are my teachers. And I thought if I put that in the corner, anyone who arrives with one of their children will soon see that the child will run toward that corner, pick up that stick and hold it and walk around the room empowered. Well, empowered how? Well, it just connecting somehow with something that allows them to be, as you say, an individual, but with respect and worth watching and see what they will do next. If all of these sticks, all of these bâtons that are on the wall are just barely hanging so they could be lifted, I'm sure if you bring and uninhibit the group that comes in and allow them to be able to touch, move, and interact with the work, each one will pick the stick that attracts them, the bâton and the color that they like, the size, the height. And then around the room, imagine these people decide to discuss whatever subject of the day, social, political, community interests, involvements, but respectfully allow each one who raises their stick and asks for permission to speak and to use it as a sort of extension of your cultural priorities and respect. So I see then maybe this material and the way of using this material can also be functional, not in an aggressive or negative or angry way, but in building mutual respect and community.
Mm-hmm. And it is an example how art in a way extends into life, because your work always connects life and art and life. It makes me just thinking about this quotation by Oscar Wilde, who said once, "Life imitates art far more than art imitates life." And in your case, it's not an imitation; it is a real immersion. It has nothing to do with mimesis, but it is first inspiration, but also kind of authentic integration, or you take the life, you bring it into your art, in your works, and vice versa. You then use your art is used by the visitor, can be used if they are sensible can be used to go ahead in their life, as we saw with this talking stick, for example.
Well, this is, little did I realize that it was going to be a bridge for me into the world of architecture, and I became friends or contacted by many architects in many different countries to join in their projects and to work sitting quietly at the planning table before the building or the space was even built, but to allow me just to join into the original basic sensibility to the space, light, culture, and place, and to give me le droit de parole at a certain moment. Could pick up my pencil, raise it at the table, and say, I think I have an idea. And this brought me from out of the studio, the silent, quiet solitude of the artist studio, into working with architects and places. What a pleasure that's been.
Since you talk about places, there are several works which you did, big installations, which you did in connection to water. And in the exhibition 3 years ago, Panterei, again, you showed an installation falling like a waterfall from the ceiling, which is called Cascade. And this expressed this fluidity, which is important in your work, for your work, in your whole conception, as I feel it. And that was also the reason why the title of this show 3 years ago was Panterei, because it referred to Heracles and the famous sentence from Heracles, too cool, everything is flowing, so that we can, in a way that we cannot have a bath in the same, twice in the same river, because the water will not be the same anymore and we will not be the same anymore. And this is a way to accept the constant movement, and also in a way to focus on the very presence of the moment we live in. So just you try, as I feel it, to capture the very presence of each moment we live, and to inscribe it in a kind of continuity. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this.
We can.
What would you do in a space like this? It's kind of frightening. The curator of the Venice Biennale told me to come and take a look at this space, which she thought I might like, a few years ago. And I think what she had in mind was that I should just have a carte blanche and bring my ideas, material, and feeling to this space in the Biennale. We filled it with quite a few tons of fiber that was coming from colors that were in Turkey mined, like natural pigments. Natural pigments transformed then industrially in Germany to an acrylic spun kind of floss without twisting it. And then, so it's just as though it snowed. There was a kind of fiber snow in color, in natural colors, natural pigmented fiber. And then we just piled it up and let it, through its own weight and own vitality, become a mass in this sort of alien space, which was, you'll see that the brick wall was actually splitting and falling. The building even risked to split. Can you see the split of the brick
Yes,
wall?
yes, yes.
We stuffed the fiber into the split in the brick wall. And then we did a mass of a very, very big fiber mountain sculpture environment. And people came in, children mostly, ran to that fiber stuffed into the wall and stopped and thought about it, and probably were trying to think of how they could stuff now fiber into their shoes or into their shoelace, into their into their pockets or into their sleeves, or somehow bring it into secret places. There's humor when you can open your life to these kind of inattendu, unexpected circumstances, places, and catastrophic areas where you can make them into a very friendly place finally. I'm sorry, I forgot the subject because, you know, I'm kind of stuck with this preoccupation that I have.
Yeah, but this is the installation in Venice was, and all what you describe was so wonderful because there was this touching of, and maybe people just recognized or became conscious that fiber, they are in contact with fiber all the time. As we are sitting here, wearing clothes, or in the morning when we, after the shower, we take our towel and wrap inside, so it is fiber. And we don't even realize anymore that we are all the time covered.
And hair.
Exactly.
And how you color your hair. Because more and more, I'll sit at a cafe here in Paris and look and see people walking down the street with purple hair or orange hair and purple earrings. It's incredible. So pigment, color is in our lives all the time. Fiber is in our lives all the time. Live it up and make something wonderful out of it.
And became sensitive about it, to be able to see it, to able to realize it, and not to go ahead as in this.
For granted. We take it for granted. That's good. That means familiarity. Yeah. That's what happens when you're married for 50 years too. Familiarity. But don't take it for granted because it's precious.
Yeah. Once we spoke about the complexity of structure in weaving, and this, and you compared this complexity with today's computers, and then I was wondering about this link, and in fact, as you said, if you have on the loom hundreds of threads to bring together and to make them communicate and to make something out of them, a result. So it's this kind of intellectual structuring actually can remind of more technological or electronic devices we have today. Can you
think of the godfather of our computer civilization, who is Monsieur Jacquard. Monsieur Jacquard with this loom that he invented. And when they wove complex structures like cashmere shawls and other industrial conceived high quality, high performance fabrics and surfaces that we now can use in emergency situations after storms for housing and for protection. All of these things go back to these loom structures and the tension and strength that they give us. They're not only the amusing part of life, they're the basis of most of our life. It's, and we say, we take them so much for granted. Let's think a little more deeply about them, and let's honor them.
And on the one hand, there is this structure which brings together or inscribes itself in a frame. And on the other hand, there's this freedom you give to the materials to go beyond. Since, for example, in the installation, to come back to the exhibition in which I'm sitting in, the Deep on a Hidden Forest Walk, this wonderful installation, where you give freedom to the fibers and leave them, you bring them in a kind of non-domesticated form. You leave them as vegetal forms, or yeah, and you make the link to nature. Nature is omnipresent in your work anyway.
Instead of inviting them to misbehave,
Right.
they don't have to stand in line. They don't have to be Bauhaus strict alignment and geometry. I'm giving them the key to freedom and say, misbehave or do what you want to do and show us new paths, new ways, and new possibilities.
Mm. And the next time they will be shown in another place, they will behave in another way again. And each time you show them, they will also evolve.
If there are windows in the next space, many of the panels that are hung vertically can be hung horizontally.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you even dare think that Rothko, when he was in the studio working, might have turned his panels that he was working on sideways or upside down, depending where light sources were coming from. Remember the Rothko Chapel in Texas, where they were thinking about the light and the way it was revealing colors? And there was such a problem in dealing with the light and the skylight, because light is our strongest friend. And we listen to light before we do anything.
Hmm. Light, and actually every time you inscribe your work into a space, and I remember, because also at the Museum of Modern Art in Paris, where I'm working for, you did a big installation in the entrance hall. And I remember that first, before we started working on the installation, you came and you passed much time in the entrance hall to observe the light, from where the impact of the light, but also to observe the public, the behavior of the public, and especially the children, and of course the architecture and the materials used in this entrance hall, in this space. And then once you had all these factors together, you started the installation, and that was probably also the key for the success, because it became totally a fusion. The installation fusion, it was, sorry, a kind of fusion with the architectural space and also the public.
Think how much Rembrandt thought of light and of textiles, because all of his portraits and all of his depictions of people are very sensitive, very sensitively rendered, and the different kinds of textiles and draping and light sources. Painting is important when the painters also are talking and showing you environments through light.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm. I'm wondering if there are, from our auditors, if there are questions concerning our talk. Can just I cannot see any question at the screen. Sheila, do you want to add something concerning this exhibition, Cosmic Vibrations? Or is there some issue we did not evoke for you?
These communications that we're doing now since COVID, you know, online, a lot of communications of visual arts are helping us to open eyes and open ears. And I think maybe too many words are causing us to look less at the immediate environment around us. So no questions might be a good sign. Maybe people are just thinking and looking around the room they're sitting in. Hopefully, that would be my objective.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can, in the end of this talk, go through all the works again with the camera, so that people can look at them, at the works, if they cannot come personally to the show. At least they can see them on the screen. And I thank you very much, Sheila, for this conversation. And I'm looking forward to meet you. I can see you soon in Paris again. There is one question coming up. The question is, do you know young artists whose career you follow with interest?
Hundreds, because it's exploding. Communication from all over the world of people who are young and enthusiastic, all genders, all ages, who are sensitized to the fact that fiber and textiles are a very important part of their lives, and they can express so many things. And they're connecting with one another from one country to another, different cultures, Asia, South America. It's as I say, it's a key to cultural communication.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, there for some more questions, maybe they can be sent directly to the gallery, because the answer would be a little bit longer and more complicated. And so I thank you very much for your time, Sheila. And I also thank all our visitors for this moment we passed together. And I invite you to go through the works a last time.
Rosemary, you're the conductor of an orchestra, and you're helping us all play together. Thank you, Rosemary.